There once was a poor man named Hans. He had no money, no home, and nothing to eat. Yet he was cheerful. "I'll find something," he said. "I'll follow this road to the next town." Before long, a very old woman called to him from the other side of the road. "What do you want?" Hans asked. "What do I want?" the old woman replied. "I want money." "You can have money," said the old woman. "Take this magic blue coat and climb to the top of that tall tree. Then climb down inside it. You will come to a great room with 300 lights. There are 3 doors there. Go through the first door and you will see a large box. On top of the box sits a dog whose eyes are as big as eggs. Do not be afraid, it will not hurt you. Spread my blue coat on the floor. Take the dog and place it on the coat in front of the box. Open the box and you will find money. Take some. Then go through the second door and you will see a larger box. On that box sits a dog with eyes as large as oranges. Do not be afraid. It will not hurt you. Put the dog down on the coat in front of the box. Open the box and you will see gold. Take some. Then go through the third door. There you will find the biggest box. On top of it sits a dog with eyes as large as plates. Do not be afraid. It is friendly. Inside its box are jewels. Take some. "This is wonderful," said Hans. "But what can I do for you?" "I do not want any money or gold or jewels," said the old woman. "I only want one small thing. In the third room, there is a little glass box. My grandmother lost it there. Bring me that box." Hans climbed up the tree and then down inside it. He went lower and lower and lower. At last, he saw the 300 lights and the 3 doors. He opened the first door and entered a small room. There, on a box, sat a dog with eyes as large as eggs. "Good dog," said Hans. He remembered the old woman's instructions. He spread her blue coat on the floor, lifted the dog, and set it on the coat in front of the box. He opened the box and was filled with excitement. He took some money and put it into his hat. Then he placed the dog back on the box and went into the second room. There, on another box, sat a dog with eyes as large as oranges. "You are a fine dog," said Hans. He set the dog down in front of the box and opened it. At once his eyes seemed as yellow as the gold inside. Hans took some gold and put it into his hat. Then he went into the last room. This dog had eyes as large as plates. "You are a very fine dog," he said. Hans looked at the jewels in the box, and his eyes seemed suddenly red, blue, yellow, green, and gold. He took some jewels and put them into his shoes. Then he remembered the old woman's glass box. He found it on the floor beside the dog. He climbed back up through the inside of the tree. This time it was harder because of the heavy gold and jewels, but at last he got out. "Throw down the box!" cried the old woman when she saw him. But he did not throw it down. Suddenly, a stone struck him on the head. "Help! I'm going to fall and die!" he thought. But he stretched out a hand and did not fall. "Did you throw that stone?" he called. "Yes, now give me the box!" She was no longer friendly. "I am not going to give it to you," he answered. The old woman became furious, and her face turned hideous. Hans climbed down to the ground and walked away along the road. She shouted insults after him, but he did not reply. There was nothing she could do. By the time he reached the town, it was night. He found a fine room and asked for the best food. The next day he went out and bought beautiful clothes. People thought he was a very rich and important man. Suddenly, he had many friends. One day, someone asked him, "Do you know about the princess?" "What princess?" Hans asked. "Who is she? Where does she live?" "You cannot see her," the man replied. "Why not?" "Because she lives in a large house and is never allowed to leave it. There is only one door, and the windows are very high. She never goes outside. The king has ordered that no one may see her." "Why does she live like that?" asked Hans. "A wise old man once told the king, 'Your daughter will marry a poor man.' The king became very angry. He built that great house with high windows and shut the princess inside." "I want to see the princess," said Hans. He found the house and went to the door, but the king's servants quickly drove him away. Then he dressed himself in his most expensive clothes and went to the king's own house. The king was furious. "Do not come near my house again," he shouted. "I will cut off your head and put it on a stick." Hans lived well for a while and soon spent his money. One day he had only 2 jewels left. He left his fine room and moved into a poor house. Hans was poor again. No one cooked his meals. No one cleaned his shoes. His rich friends no longer invited him to their homes. He tried to find the tree with the 3 dogs again, but he could not find it. Before long, Hans had no money left. No money even for food. He looked around his room. What could he sell? Then he saw the little glass box on the table. "Perhaps I can buy some bread with this," he thought. Why did the old woman want it? It is made of glass, but I cannot see inside it. Perhaps there are jewels or gold hidden in it. He tried to open the box, but he could not. He struck it once with his hand. Immediately, the dog with eyes as large as eggs appeared in front of him. "What do you want?" asked the dog. "What do I want?" cried Hans. "I want money." The dog ran off and quickly returned with a bag of money in its mouth. Hans thought for a moment. Then he said, "I understand. The first dog comes when I strike the box once. The second dog will come when I strike it twice. The third dog will come when I strike it 3 times. He hit the box 1, 2, and the dog with eyes as large as oranges brought gold. He struck the box 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and the dog with eyes as large as plates brought jewels. Hans was rich again. He bought beautiful clothes and moved into a large house. All his friends returned. "Why didn't you visit us?" they said. "Where have you been?" But Hans did not care for those friends. He thought only of the unhappy princess. "She can never go out," he thought. "She can never walk in the garden. Her mother is dead. She can speak only to the servants and the old king. She lives a sorrowful life." One night, Hans could not sleep. Suddenly an idea came to him, and he got out of bed. He took the glass box and struck it once. The dog appeared. "It is night, a beautiful night," said Hans, "and no one will see us. I know the princess would like to walk in my garden. Bring her here." Very quickly the dog returned. The princess lay asleep on its back. Her lovely face looked sad. Hans woke her and led her into the garden. "Where am I?" she cried. "What is happening?" She was afraid. "You are walking with me in my garden," said Hans. "Look, the flowers are asleep." "A garden!" cried the princess. "Am I truly outside? With the ground beneath my feet and the sky above me? No walls? No windows? I can hear the sounds of the night around me." They walked together for a long time. Then the first light of morning began to appear. "I must go," she said. "But how did I get here?" Hans told her about the glass box and the dogs. She struck the box and called the dog. "Good dog," she said when it appeared. "You have beautiful eyes. Take me home. I do not want anyone to see us. Thank you for this night, Hans." The princess climbed onto the dog's back and fell asleep. The next day, the princess remembered nothing, yet she felt different. Her servant, Anna, who was jealous and unkind, came to wake her. "Wake up, princess, it is midday. The king is waiting for you." "Is he?" said the princess, and she jumped happily out of bed. "Look, Anna, what a beautiful day." Anna began to think. Several things seemed strange. First, the princess always rose at 7 o'clock, but today it was 12. Second, the princess was always sad, but today she was happy. Third, the hem of the princess's nightdress was dirty. Fourth, there was a lovely white flower on the bedroom floor, yet there were no white flowers in the king's garden. Anna went to the king. "Let us wait and watch," said the king. "When she goes out again, we will follow her." Hans was in love with the princess. He thought of her day and night. After 3 days, he could wait no longer. He struck the glass box 1, 2, and the dog with eyes as large as oranges appeared. He hit the box once and then a second time, and the dog appeared, the one whose eyes were as large as oranges. That dog could see everything. It noticed the X on the door and told Hans. "Ho, ho!" laughed Hans. "Come quickly. We will mark an X on every door in this street and in the next 10 streets as well." The next day, Anna told the king what had happened during the night. The king took Anna and several men to Hans's street. "This is the house!" cried Anna. "No, it is this one!" cried the king. One of the men came running back to them. "The house is in the next street," he said. "There is an X on the door." Every house had an X on its door. The king returned home in great anger. Later that day, Anna thought of another plan. She went into her room and shut the door. She made a small bag and filled it with tiny white stones. Then she cut a small hole in the bottom of the bag and hid it in the princess's clothes. "Now," she said, "when the princess goes out, the little stones will fall onto the road, and we will be able to follow them to the house." That night, Hans called the princess again with the glass box. They walked in the garden while the dog with eyes as large as plates waited at the front of the house. "I wish I were a prince," said Hans. "I wish I were not a princess," said the princess. "Why?" asked Hans. She did not answer. "I want to be a prince," he said, "because I want to marry you." They sat down under a tree. Hans placed the glass box on the ground beside him. "Do not become a prince," she said. "I could never love a prince. I will be a poor girl, and you will still be Hans." At that very moment, the dog saw the king and Anna with 100 servants. They had come from the king's house and were following the little white stones. The stones shone in the darkness, and they followed them. The dog ran to the princess. "The king! The king is coming!" it cried. "Come quickly!" The dog raced away through the streets with the princess on its back. The king, Anna, and the servants arrived at Hans's house. "Is the princess here?" shouted the king. Hans did not answer. Suddenly, the king saw his daughter's little shoe lying on the ground beside some beautiful white flowers. For a moment, he could not speak. Then he said angrily to Hans, "My woodcutter will cut off your head at 12 o'clock tomorrow." The servants took Hans to the king's house and locked him in a room. Hans searched for his glass box. Where was it? Lost. He could not call the dogs. Then he remembered. It was beneath the tree. When the sun came up, Hans went to the window and looked out. He was very high above the ground. He saw a little boy below and called, "Hey, little boy! What do you want?" shouted the boy. "Would you like 3 pence?" "Yes, please," said the boy. "Then run to my house. Tell my servant, Hans has a little glass box. It is in the garden under a tree. He wants me to bring it to the king's house. If you bring me the box, I will give you 3 pence." The boy disappeared. A little later, he returned with the box. "Throw it up to me!" cried Hans. The boy tossed it up and Hans caught it. Then he threw down the money. At that very moment, the door opened and the king's men came in. They took Hans to a large square in the center of town. Everyone from the town had gathered there. They wanted to watch. The king stood in the middle of the square with the most important people of the town around him. Before Hans stood a great, strong woodcutter. He wore a long red coat and a tall black hat. "Are you ready?" the king asked the woodcutter. "Are you ready?" the woodcutter asked Hans. "No!" cried Hans, and he took out the glass box. "Are you ready?" said the woodcutter again. "No!" cried Hans, and he struck the box once. Then he struck it again. 1, 2, and then again. 1, 2, 3. The 3 dogs stood before him. "Take the woodcutter away," he told the dog with eyes as large as eggs. "Throw him into the river." The dog ran off with the woodcutter on its back. "Drive away the king's men," Hans said to the dog with eyes as large as plates. The dog grew bigger and bigger. Everyone stared with open mouths. Soon the dog was as large as a house. The king's men were terrified and ran away. "Bring the princess here," Hans said to the dog with eyes as big as oranges. "Where is the king?" he cried. Before long, the princess and the king stood before Hans with the dogs behind them. "Do you want to be king?" Hans asked the old king. "No," said the king. "I want only white flowers in my garden and a happy daughter. When the princess and I are married, white flowers will bloom in your garden again, and the princess will be happy." And so Hans married the princess. The new king and queen lived happily together for many years. They had 6 children and a very large garden. The old king spent the last years of his life living near them, and all year long his garden was a sea of white flowers.